Hi friends, Hannah here. If we've not met before, I'm the founder of Psyche Coaching, host of the Psyche podcast, and I am a mental wellbeing coach and family wellbeing coach. So I can support individuals on a one-to-one basis to really prioritize their mental wellbeing and feel better about themselves, their lives, and all of that. And then also with families, I can work individually with children, with parents, or with that kind of whole family dynamic. So that's me. Today I'm dropping in to do a fun little video, hopefully, answering some of the most commonly asked questions about mental health. So mental health is something that I love to talk about. You always hear me going on about how important it is to look after our own mental health and sharing my own experience. So my journey has been with anxiety and depression, predominantly depression actually, although anxiety is kind of hiding under there a lot. And that started probably before my teen years, or definitely in my teens. Carried on through my 20s and now my early 30s, doing okay, although it's still an ongoing process. And from that, as well as my professional experience as a teacher and a coach, using what I've learned from my own journey to support other people. So I'll be doing some more of these about my personal journey, about mental health generally. And if you have any specific questions, please do let me know in the comments. I'll respond, and also happy to do more videos to share my thoughts. So I've got my computer screen behind this, which you can't see. I can't do the fancy stuff of sharing it, of some frequently asked mental health questions. And I'm going to share my thoughts. Other people might have different perspectives, different ways of talking about these things. So these are my opinions and the kind of Psyche opinions, which is my company, Psyche Coaching. The first one, big one, what is mental health? And so for me, mental health, the same way we might talk about physical health, is just health. It's to do with how well we are, basically. I think often when we say mental health, people tend to think of mental illness when things aren't going so well, things like depression and anxiety and OCD and all of those named conditions as mental health. But actually mental health is that wider spectrum. I like to talk about mental well-being as those practices we do to try and keep ourselves towards that well and healthy end when we're talking about mental stuff. So mental health is just how we're doing with the mind and the emotions and all of that. And we have that really well thriving end, and then we have the end where things are more difficult and where we maybe meet the criteria to be given a diagnosed condition, if that makes sense. So that's my perspective. So mental health just generally is how we're doing mentally. Sorry, asthma. When I get stressed, when I get stressed, when I get excited, a little bit of a wheeze. Anyway, there's a question here: what to do if the support doesn't help? Which is a big question. I kind of want to backtrack to maybe support. I'll go through my own questions in of when to look for support, or when to try and find some help. And I think with mental health, with anything, it might be that someone else notices something that concerns them and they might try and talk to you about it. But I think if we are honest with ourselves and look at ourselves, we can kind of tell when things aren't right, when we are feeling maybe differently to how we felt before, we are not doing the things that we usually do, whether it is that we are avoiding them because we're anxious or there isn't any enjoyment in them, or it might be that there are things that are more concerning. You might be having intrusive thoughts, you might be feeling suicidal, but if it feels that there is something concerning you, something different, something not quite right, that is having an impact on living your life, I think that is the time to talk to someone about it. It could be a friend, family member, it could be a professional. There are some awesome resources where you can kind of look at different conditions. If you're thinking, maybe I'm depressed, maybe I'm anxious, the NHS website has a lot of great information, as does Mind. If you're in the UK, if you're not in the UK, it still has great information, so I would check those out. And it could be that maybe you're not aware of it and someone else has noticed something and they are talking to you about it. So That could be another way. So it's kind of noticing stuff, and then support. And so then if the support doesn't help, again, that is it's really difficult, I think, sometimes, because we might not want to be difficult. We might be like, well, I haven't got as bad as other people. We get into that self-stigma. And if things don't feel right for you and you are struggling, it is important for you to get help. You deserve to get help. It doesn't matter if whoever has had a more traumatic experience. We all respond differently. So if you are finding things difficult at the moment, you absolutely are entitled to get support and help, and hopefully you'll be able to access support that is beneficial. That can be difficult with funding, with access, all of that kind of stuff. If it doesn't help, then maybe it is not the right support. So for example, medication. I have taken antidepressants in the past a couple of times. Sorry, dog outside. And sometimes it can take time to find the right medication, and maybe it isn't right for you. I would say you try the first thing. If it's not working, being honest, talking to your care provider and trying something different. If you are having therapy, maybe that type of therapy doesn't work for you, or maybe that therapist isn't quite right for you. Maybe something like coaching is more appropriate, or a different type of counselling, because there's a few different flavours of counselling. And the relationship with that therapist or coach is really important, actually more important than the type of therapy and coaching, because if you don't feel safe and supported, and that you're able to talk about what's going on and explore what is going on for you in that session, then you're not going to talk about those things, and that is where you can really have some new insights and find new solutions for yourself, and explore things. And it can be difficult, and so feeling safe and supported and understood by whoever you're working with is really important. So I'd say if it doesn't help, try other options, and maybe there are different ones for you. I also think peer support and community is massively important as well, because mental health conditions, mental health concerns by their nature, are very isolating. You can feel like, what is wrong with me? No one feels the way I do. I'm broken. It's a very isolating, lonely experience sometimes. And connecting with other people who can relate to that and understand it can be really helpful. Particularly, I think, if they are slightly further in their own kind of healing recovery. I don't know what the right word is. So mental health healing journey, I often talk about, because they can support you. They can relate. They won't know exactly what's going on for you because they're not you, but they have that understanding, and hopefully they are there in that supportive capacity. And I'm a peer mentor, offering peer support at the moment. I find it so rewarding to do, and I think it gives hope as well to work with someone who has been there, obviously in their own unique way, but has got to a place where they are doing okay. And I love this idea of doing okay and not okay, because actually for me, I had periods of really deep depression, my own version of deep depression, I should say, and then periods where I thought I was completely fine. And actually only looking back was I like, ooh, I wasn't really okay for a lot of that time. And so that initially was my journey to get to a place of being okay. And now that I'm here, I'm starting to be open to the idea of things being good sometimes, which is a fun journey. But I think it's why I like to share my story to support other people, but maybe also that sometimes things just feel awful, and that they're never going to get any better. And I did not like myself at all. I hated myself. I was in a very low place, suicidal thoughts at times, and actually it's taken a while, but it is possible. So peer support as well can be really helpful. And I think also for me, personal responsibility, because I think with mental health sometimes it can feel that you've got no control over what's happening, that your mind is not doing what you want it to do, even though it often does that anyway, even if we're not experiencing mental health concerns. But it can feel like there's nothing that you can do, that it's kind of out of control, and actually realizing that maybe there were things that I could do that maybe at the time didn't feel like they were really helping, but that they kind of have that snowball effect, and kind of sometimes pushing myself. And I talk about walking this line between knowing when things are difficult and I actually need to give myself a break and chill and do self-care because I'm overloaded and I'm pushing myself too hard, and also have those hard conversations with myself sometimes of, I need to take some responsibility. If I really want to change, I need to push myself and do this. I need to just try and see what happens. For me, that was a big thing of experimental living, of going, well, let's just try and see what happens, because things are pretty crummy at the moment anyway, so it probably can't get any worse. And sometimes the kindest thing to do for myself is to give myself a kick up the backside and to push myself. And it's that balance of knowing myself and being honest with myself. And so sometimes that is difficult to do, but getting to a point where I can appreciate, actually, there are things that I can do that can have an impact on my well-being. And I think that's when we get into positive psychology stuff and things that can be really beneficial. Maybe we'll do a video on that at some point. Another question. Can you prevent mental health problems? Big one. So mental health is a complex thing because, as I said, there are things that can help with well-being, things that are going to help you to manage stresses in your life, because stress, if it builds up, can lead to burnout, can go into kind of anxiety or depression. So there are things that are going to maybe help be preventative in some ways, and build resilience and that kind of thing. But I think it's, there's this misconception, I think, sometimes, that mental health concerns, I realise I'm using mental health in that broad way, but mental health concerns, that they're like a character flaw or something, or that it's like some kind of weakness, and that's not going to happen to me because I'm strong. And they can absolutely happen to anyone. I think if you think about what is happening at the moment with COVID, you have people who maybe have never had mental health concerns and see themselves as strong and see themselves as resilient. But with COVID being in lockdown, maybe they've lost their job, maybe being at home all the time, their relationship has broken down. Suddenly, all those things that are part of how their life was and things that feed into how they see themselves and their identity, those things have disappeared, and that can have a massive impact. So I think we're not going to go into genetics, all of that kind of thing, but there are some conditions where there is a bit of a hereditary element, where they are more common if someone else in your family has had them. But environmental stuff, think about what's happening at the moment. We can't control what happens to us. So I think the best thing we can do is to think about this preventative stuff. So what are we doing to really try and look after ourselves so that we are better able to deal with those life challenges, which are going to come up anyway, because that's life. And to know ourselves, know how to look after ourselves, and then if they do come up, to reach out for support. I hope that doesn't sound too fatalistic, that I can't stop them, but I think they could happen, and it's about just looking after yourself and trying to be prepared. Are there cures for mental health problems? That's a big one. I'm gonna say no, probably not. They're very complex. If you think about something like depression, for example, that there can be a chemical imbalance in the brain, there can be environmental stimulus that are leading to that, and it can be a bit chicken and egg of which one came first. And so actually for me, it probably was a lot of environmental stuff and inner stuff that I didn't deal with, still dealing with. But my brain chemistry also then was probably a little bit of. And medication, to me, it can be that thing that if you're down here off the off camera shot, you're really low, you're struggling, those things that are going to support you, I can't do those. I don't have the energy or the motivation or the willpower or whatever. It's just too difficult to do those things. Whereas medication kind of put you more on like a level where then you could do some of those other things that are going to look after you, but also start to think about changing the situation if there are situational stuff. And for me, started with really hating myself, so it was a lot of inner work on changing how I felt about myself. And because if I always hated myself and wish things were different or wish I was different, then I'm just in that loop. It's not and that's not always going to be, I don't think that was the only factor, the only cause for my own depression, but it's a bit more complex than, and then there might not be something, and that can be difficult if you're kind of going, well, why am I depressed? Because I've got like an amazing house, I've got an amazing job, I've got everything going for me. Why? It doesn't it doesn't have to make sense, unfortunately. There might not be a reason. So I'm not sure that there is a cure per se really for any mental health condition. I think it is about managing it, really. And that maybe sounds negative, and if you are really struggling at the moment, maybe isn't a great thing to hear, but I've been at a point where I just like, oh, I want to like, this needs to change. And actually now looking back at that and being at a place where I'm like, oh, actually this is weird because I don't remember ever feeling like this before. And that's a whole new thing to kind of get used to and get your head around. But I think it's possible to kind of heal or recover a little bit and be okay. I'm going to come back to that, be okay. So I am very aware for myself that is like a predisposition, that I'm maybe prone to depression if things are challenging or overwhelming. So it's something I'm conscious of situations that might impact on that, and trying to think about those and be aware of it. So yeah, I'm not sure if there's a cure, but I think it's possible to manage. I think it is possible to get to a place where you're okay and you can kind of live life, and that is maybe more difficult with some conditions like bipolar and schizophrenia, borderline personality disorder. And I am not an expert on those from a personal or professional level. I have some knowledge of them, but yeah, I am, from my experience, I think it is possible to manage them, not necessarily cure them. Causes, talked about a little bit. How do I know if I'm unwell? Talked about that. Last one, we're going to have a go at what should I do? Oh no, two. Sorry, there's another good one. What should I do if I'm worried about a friend or relative? So I would say, if there is something that's concerning you and you've noticed it, to kindly try and be non-judgmental, because you don't know what's going on for them. And if you try to force somebody to get help, to have a conversation, then possibly you're going to alienate them and make them feel worse. You're not going to be coming across as the most supportive. So what I would recommend is just saying, I notice that you've been a bit quieter than usual, you've been a bit withdrawn. I've noticed that you're I don't know, I was going to say not coming out so much, but it's kind of hard at the moment. Whatever it is that you've noticed that is giving you that concern, and then just saying, do you want to talk about what's going on? I'm here for you if you want to talk. And it's really just planting the seed, I think, of, I've noticed this, I'm concerned, I love you, want to support you, I'm here if you want to talk. Because really, like I said, trying to force it is not going to be helpful. And it's just letting them know that you're there and that you're willing to listen and not judge. And I think it's really important to kind of ask what kind of support they want and need. They might not know, but asking them rather than just saying, this is what you need to do, or even, I've been depressed and this is what I think you should do. Because as I said before, like, my depression is different to other people's depression, and just because something works for me doesn't mean it's going to work for them. So really be there, let them know you care, don't push. And they might need to go away and kind of think about it and then come back, but you're letting them know that you're open to that conversation and support. And then the last one, how do I deal with someone telling me what to do? It's tricky. I always would try and say be kind, but that might be difficult if someone is putting lots of pressure on you. But I would try and sort of say, I appreciate your concern, but that is not appropriate for me, or maybe I don't want help, or I don't have any concerns, and just trying to politely sort of, this is my boundary, this is not okay. That might work, might not work, it might be different to your approach, but again, I think trying to remember, and if someone is coming in very heavy-handed, it can be hard to remember that they're coming from a place of concern and caring. And I'm saying this as if, not always the most logical and controlled when you're feeling really low and really vulnerable. But yeah, trying to, that doesn't feel right for me, or that's not appropriate, but really appreciating the concern, because that is probably, hopefully, where it is coming from. And maybe sort of thinking about what you want to do, or what support you want, which again can be hard. It might be having a look for what kind of support is out there, but if you can say, no, I appreciate the concern, but I don't think that is going to work for me, but I'm interested in trying this and seeing if that will help. And hopefully the people around you will be on board and supportive. Unfortunately, not always, but again, that peer support and other resources. And I think online there are more conversations about mental health. You can always check out my podcast, the Psyche Mental Wellbeing Podcast. Gone into a shameless plug now. Where we have lots of tips and advice, and you can ask a question in the comments here or on our social media, so at Psyche Coaching on Facebook, Instagram or Twitter. I'll have a go at answering your question. And yeah, if you think that coaching is something that might work for you around mental well-being, so more that kind of ongoing stress and resilience and anxiety, rather than really struggling with mental health, because that is maybe more of a therapy type approach, and I am not at that point yet of being able to integrate both. That is the long-term goal. But if you think coaching is something you're interested in exploring, then if you visit our website, www.psyche.co.uk, and you can find out there how to work with me for coaching and how to book a discovery call to have a chat and see if coaching is right for you. I hope this has been useful and helpful to hear my ramblings and my thoughts about mental health and commonly asked mental health questions. Let me know what you think. I probably will do more of these, so if you've got requests of anything that you want to hear my thoughts on, let me know, and I will speak to you soon. Have a great day, or good day, or an okay day.